Hey, good evening, everyone. Another Tuesday evening, a very cold Tuesday evening as well. Certainly, if you're in England, certainly up north, it's cold. I heard it tried to snow yesterday in London, but it didn't settle. But it's on its way. We are reliably informed. So we're here again for another evening. Let me just pop that there. Brilliant. Just checking to make sure that my sound engineer can hear me loud and clear. Then we'll crack on with this evening's session of self-reinvention in sickness, better still in health. And obviously, that's a play on the wedding vows or the marriage vows formulated in 1516. So just want to just make sure. Yep. Good evening, Sonia. Thank you, faithful friend. And thank you for my sound engineer. Really appreciate that. Listen, we're good to go. So self-reinvention in sickness, better still in health. We're looking at this whole thing about reinvention. Next week, we're going to be looking at another view to that, the pros and cons of self-reinvention. But tonight we're looking at that. So my name is Delroy Hall. I'm a trained counsellor, trainer, teacher, lecturer. Have been for over 30 years. Started this broadcast during lockdown, and April this year will be 4 years. Can you imagine? It's gone quick. Very, very quick indeed. Really good to get over the 4 years, amazing input from people. Not huge like some of the people, but just manageable, been able to deal with things on a personal level and really, really enjoy it. So those of you that are watching, thank you very much indeed. Those that you don't comment, thank you much indeed. I know that you're taking the time out, so hopefully your time will be well spent. So tonight, we're looking at self-reinvention, which is kind of in vogue at the moment, this whole thing about reinvention. So it's taken from an idea by Jesse Isler. So there's nothing new under the sun, and even he has taken his ideas from somebody else. And if you look at things long enough, and deep enough and broad enough, there's nothing new under the sun. We take things, take from other people. But the thing, of course, is to acknowledge your sources. Otherwise, you can be done for intellectual theft or plagiarism. So obviously, Jesse Isler's got a model, but then I will include some of my own bits in as well. So he talks about planning a year that you're proud of. Now, good evening, Norma, and anyone else that's watching. Now, he talks about the end of the year, but there's another time that I always say to folks, Happy New Year. Not just the beginning of the new year, but when I write people birthday cards, I'll say to them, Happy birthday and Happy New Year, because there's a new year. So there's 2 times of the year I say to folks, Happy New Year. Birthday times, and obviously the end of one year and into the new one. So he talks about closing out the old year. So he's talking about December 2023, and he says you start that from December. If you look in my diary, that's what I've got in my diary for the first time. I've got begin to think about closing out 2024. Good evening, Jenny. So you can do that with your birthday. You're coming up to a birthday, and certainly if you're coming up to a milestone birthday, 21, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and so forth, coming up to that time can be a time that you can think about the year coming. What do you want to be proud of? So this whole thing around end of year and the birthday, he talks about end of year, but I say the end of year and your birthday that's coming up. So he talks about the reflection. I like some of his ideas. He talks about declutter. That's what he does at the end of the year. He declutters, goes through his wardrobe and gets rid of clothes, stuff he's not worn, things he doesn't need, shoes, shirts, jackets, the whole thing, and he donates them. He cleans his desk, get rid of non-essentials, he unsubscribe from things. It's a time to kind of do a personal spring cleaning or winter cleaning. You come to the end of your either the calendar year, or you coming up to the end of your birthday, you're about to get into a new birthday, and what can you do differently? One of the things he says that you unsubscribe from websites. I've started to do that already. The amount of stuff that I've subscribed to over the years, I'm now bit by bit I'm unsubscribing. I no longer need to use them, and if I do, I know how to get the information. But one of the things he says that's really, really important, I've not done it for the last couple of years, but I've done it for many, many years, and maybe one or two of you who might know. But what I did for years, I've not sent Christmas cards in years. My daughters will tell you that. But what I do, I send New Year's cards. And what I do, I remember my next door neighbor sending him a New Year card quite a few years ago. He no longer lives there, and he said he doesn't talk to people much. He's very good. He works for himself, works repairing cars, and he said that I gave him the card, and he said it was still on his mantelpiece, July, handwritten. And I don't want to make assumptions about people in faith. So what I do with a card, I'm not saying you should do this, but this is what I did for a long time. For many, many years, decades, I got a card. On the left-hand side, I would write maybe a reflection of the year. And then on the right-hand side, I would write a prayer. And if the person wasn't of any faith, or we'd never spoken, I never made the assumption that they did or they didn't. But I wrote a well wish for the year, and it's amazing. People don't throw them away. They'll throw away Christmas cards, but they won't throw away those cards. So that's something I used to do, but I'm going to get back into that. It's a lot of cards to write, but then if you start it early enough, like some people, they start their Christmas shopping about September, October time. So that's a good time to write, and certainly that's another conversation for another time. Handwriting cards Handwriting is a dying art, but when people receive them, they do appreciate them. So just something to think about. So you just say to people who've been really good to you during the year, and you want to acknowledge them, you want to thank them, and what greater way but to write them a letter or a card. And you don't have to be religious or not religious, but maybe a reflection of the year. And there's loads of quotes we can use to share with individuals. It's really, really important. And one of the things that he says, do a review of the year. So do a review in December of the year, or do a review the last month leading up to your birthday, a reflection of the year. What were the highlights? What were the low points? What have you learned? What did you like? What didn't you like? And what things do you want to bring into the new year or your new birthday year? Those things are really, really important. And one of the things that he says, and I really, really love this, he talks about when you're working and you're leaving any decent organization, there will be an exit interview to find out why you're leaving, what you weren't happy with, blah 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 blah. But he talks about having an exit interview with your year. What was good, what was different, what you sad about, unhappy about, what if you had your time again you would do differently. So having an exit interview either December of the year or the last few weeks leading up to your new birthday, I think it's a fascinating and fantastic idea. And I, for one, am certainly going to do that. So we talk about closing out the year. Then we're going to look at why have a plan, and then about developing new habits. So this whole thing about self-reinvention, it doesn't have to be something great. It can be something small, but you build on it and you keep building on it and you grow with small steps. So then why have a plan? Now, he's made a really interesting point. He asked this question, who are you busy for? Who controls your diary? I told you last week that I looked at my diary for 2023. The first time I've done it in such a way, I sat with my diary in front of me, my journal, and I went back to January the 1st, and I started to flick through the pages, write about some things. And if I looked at something and there was a bodily reaction to it, jarred, I wrote about it, what was going on at the time. But I looked at my diary, I thought, Delroy, too busy. So already this year, my mornings now, there's two things that I've had to let go. My mornings now are committed to reading, writing, studying. I need to, the amount of work or the type of work that I'm doing, I really want to be ahead of the game. And I don't want to be studying it from the night before, but I want to really to know what's the leading thought and using new techniques and different ways of engaging with people for training. So my mornings now is given to, I go to the gym, and then I come back, I have a coffee, and then I get on to work, and I'll work till about midday. So that's from 9 till midday, 9 to 1. And that focus time, the time where I'm most sharpest to do that intellectual work is done. And I just have to trust So obviously on days where I'm doing all day training, I can't do it then, but I'm not doing training every single day. But at the moment where I've got those times in the morning, then I can do that time of study and preparation. So so he talks about, I really like this. Well, he said this, good evening, Baltic Nails. Good to see you this evening with the exclamation marks. Really good to see you. And I don't think I wish you Happy New Year yet. So happy New Year to you. So he says, he asks a question, and it's a question we need to ask ourselves. Are you in a routine? Do you have routines? And I says, are you in a routine? A routine is what our body needs, and we need to function, do routines, get up in the morning, have breakfast, go to the gym, brush our teeth, all that type of thing. Maybe not in that order, of course. But a rut is where you're stuck. And it's a definition I read years ago. A rut is a coffin with the ends taken off. So he says, are you in a routine? And I ask the question, are you in a routine? So this whole thing about doing something different that kind of makes us alive. So he talks about planning for newness in our lives, which is different to people pleasing. Remember, a few months ago, I spent 5 or 6 weeks on people pleasing. And one of the things that I remember sharing with my supervisor, he said, Delroy, people pleasing is far more common than we realize. And I know that I've been guilty of that for a long time. People pleasing, and then what's happened in the process, your spirit is being crushed or you're dying while other people are kind of getting on and you're pleasing people, and quite often they don't appreciate what you're doing anyway. So this whole thing about have a plan. So he talks about map out an effective year. So he said, plan a year that you can be proud of. Plan a year that you can be proud of. And he talks about mapping out an effective year. Now, what he does, he's got this big card and big sheet of card, and the whole year's in front of him. I think it's fantastic. So 365 squares, and he's got every single day in front of him. And I guess he keeps it on his wall, but at least you have a year to the view, so you can see what's happening week in, week out, month in, month out. And I'm thinking of doing that myself, just getting 2 flip charts and just putting some sellotape and then just mapping out the thing for the year and then putting it on my wall. So things that are essential, put them in your diary from now. It's really important. So I think some of you may know, may not know, since I've started working for myself, every 7th week, I really kind of downtime. And over the years, it's got better, but this year I've been really concerted to the point whereby there was an appointment today, and I've asked for the appointment to be moved. So that week will be rest, relaxation, study, thinking time. Some of us may have our views about Bill Gates, but every year he goes away for 2 weeks. He's got a cabin out in the hills, no phone, no internet, and all he does is read and get ideas. So this whole thing about reading, restoration, relaxation, giving our bodies time to think. And maybe if you're working full time, you're not able to do that as frequently, but it's really important. So, whoa, here we go. Oh, what is your definition of people pleasing? I've got my own idea what you mean, but I'm not even sure how I arrived at my definition. Yeah, people pleasing. Yeah, basically, gosh, I did a session. Oh, gosh, I did that for about 2 months based on a Morgan Freeman quote. Basically, people pleasing is when you put aside your own agenda, your own needs, your own wants, and you do things for other people. But at the same time you're doing it, it's not just a case of helping them. You're kind of dying on the inside. You don't want to do it, but you do it through duress. And then what happens? It can spoil the relationship. And then what happens if you do it long enough? You can become unwell. So you're forever pleasing people, but not giving any attention to the needs that you have for yourself. I hope that makes it clear. That's my definition about people pleasing. And to break away from it is really, really difficult. In fact, if sometimes people can continue doing it because it makes them unwell. And in fact, funny you should ask that question. I hope that's helped the definition, Jenny. If not, come back to me. It was last night I was thinking about this, and I remembered years and years ago when I left British Telecom, started training as a counsellor, and I remember having a phone call with somebody. I remember a name. I'll never forget a name, but I won't say what her name is now. And she was really, really tired. I think now I understand she was on the edge of burnout. She was looking after, she had a husband, 3 sons, and she had aging parents. and she was looking after all of them. And I asked her about how she felt about looking after the husband she was looking after, the 3 boys. It seemed like they weren't doing much, and then she's got aging parents, and she said, oh, I don't mind, I don't mind. And then as we continued the conversation, she said, do you know what? She said, I do mind. I'm really angry. And she really was. And she got to the point where she resented it. She knew that she had to do it, but part of it was resentment, because I think she recognized that she was doing stuff for other people and not doing anything for herself. I hope that answers your question, Jenny. If not, please come back to me. So put essentials in your diary from now. One of the roles I had, I was able to choose my days off, and so I got my diary from, say, October, and when I got it for the next year, all the days off went in. That helps. Oh, there we go. I would add that a person will feel like they are not. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. If they're not, you can't make others feel better. Absolutely correct. The whole thing about people pleasers, that they are riddled with guilt, and what we do and what can happen if they then learn to say no, they can be so filled with guilt that they then change their minds. But then what can happen? They have to pursue it. Otherwise, they will just become crushed. So it's learning to say no, learning to not feel guilty, or being able to work through those emotions over a period of time. Not always easy when you've given a life of just giving, and that's what people expect. And when you say no, they say, oh, I thought Delroy was a nice man. Oh, no, I've got different views about him now. So this whole thing about people pleasing is really important. So let me give you an example about putting things in your diary now. There's 2 couples I know now that when they get the diary for the new year, they put their holidays in from the time they get the diary. Weekends away, it's in the diary. So I heard one of them say they're in an office, and one of them said that it's really nice when you come back from a holiday knowing you can look forward to another one. If you're busy, you can't wait for a week or you hope a week, but put it in your diary from now. It's really important to do that. One of the things that Jesse Isler talks about, he talks about this idea called misugi. It's a Japanese ritual for cleansing the body, but he's kind of reinterpreted it. So misugi, he talks about having one defining thing for the year, that when you look back, either you look back at December 2024, or you look back at the kind of the 11 months that you've had from your birthday. You look back and it's something that you've done, that one thing you've done consistently throughout the year that you're really proud of. One of the things I'm really focusing on is really treasuring my mornings. So for example, I found out today that a place where they told me not to come back to, there's been a miscommunication. I'll be going back, but I'll only be going back in the afternoons. My morning times is for study, for reading, for writing, for reflection, and getting myself gemmed up for the work I need to do. So one thing now, it could be a marathon. For me also, it's going to be an aqua bike. I want to be doing a couple of events this year, because this year is 50 years since I've been involved in sports, athletics. I want to do something. And then he talks about that one thing, that talks about alternate months, one day or a weekend, do something you would not normally do. Do something that you would not normally do. Now, I live in Sheffield. Now, you go on to what's on Sheffield, the amount of stuff that's going on. Most of the stuff I've never done before. But there's lots of stuff going on in the city. I guess in London and Birmingham, there's just, and other places, Coventry, Wolverhampton, there's loads of stuff that's happening at the same time. Not everything is, some of it's free, sometimes you have to pay, but then doing something different that takes you out your comfort zone and you can enjoy what you want to do. So for example, there's things like doing a craft weekend, doing rambling, or doing, I can hear it already, doing outdoor swimming. So he talks about these mini adventures. I was at a party a few weeks ago, and there's a friend of mine, he plays the piano, not at a great level, but he plays the piano, he loves music, and he told me he's going to Brazil for a music holiday. He's never done anything like this before, so he's going to Brazil for a music holiday. There's people who do swimming holidays and cycling holidays. Do something different. And this is what he says. From the ages of 40 to 60 is 20 years. If you do something new every other month, it means you do 6 new things a year. In that 20 years, you do, 120 new things. How great is that for giving energy to your life, to filling your life with excitement? I was talking to a supervisor some time ago, and he was on a course. He's 70, he's 76, and he met an older couple who decided they want to do something different every single month. And you'll never believe what this course was. This course was learning to be a comedian. None of them have got any intentions of being a comedian, but they wanted to do something different. And my friend was telling me the couple who he met, they were in their late 80s, still doing stuff together. And one of the things they were doing was learning to be a comedian. So listen, there's lots of things we can do outside the TV, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have a Netflix night or whatever it might be, but there can be something that we can do that takes us outside of our comfort zone, something new. We begin to meet different people, reinventing ourselves. Absolutely important, critically important. That really helps us to get a move on with our lives. I just think it's fantastic, really. I know one of the things that we used to do when the kids were younger, Saturday mornings was always cook breakfast and jokes. So it was a routine in the family. Cook breakfast Saturday morning, and we had a book of jokes, and we told each other jokes. And that happened for quite a while until they kind of got older, and then we do different things and so forth. But do something different. I know of families whereby at the weekend or one day of the weekend, no electronic devices, and the family play games together. A way of connecting, bonding, doesn't cost anything, but really develops relationships. Really, really important. So one of the great things as well, he talks about the final thing. He talks about each quarter, he says, develop a new habit. Try to do something that's different. And he says that one of the things that it said about getting older, that the ability to do things lessens, because quite often we want to do things, but the body is not able to do it. Now, as he started to talk about that, he says he cycled across America. On a bicycle, as far as I know. He's done ultra marathons, if I remember right, is over 50 odd miles. So he's done lots of things, but he says when you do those things, you don't see 80-year-olds doing things like that. You don't see 80-year-olds doing backflips at all. They can't do it, but you can do stuff when you're younger. So as he started to think about that, I started to think about this excellent book. I've not read the book, but I've seen the interview by Bronnie Ware, who's interviewed by Dr. Ranjan Chatterjee on YouTube. Dr. Bronnie Ware, and she's written an excellent book called Top 5 Regrets of Dying People. She was an hospice worker, and as she got close to people who were dying, she started to ask them questions, got into conversation with them, and she said certain themes came up in terms of how they had lived their life. And I want to read the top 5 themes, what they are. These are the top 5 regrets of dying people. Bronnie Ware, an excellent book. Check her out on YouTube. Top 5 regrets of dying people. If you put that in, comma, Bronnie, BRONNIE, it'll come up, right? So these are the top 5 regrets. I can post them later on. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life other people expected of me. So I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life other people, not others expected of me. Remember, going back to Jenny's comment about people pleasing. Number 2, I wish I had not worked so hard. Number 2, I wish I had not worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I wished I'd stayed in touch with my friend. One of the things about meeting up with friends, and we're all busy, it only happens if we put it in the diary. If you do not put it in the diary, it will not happen. And we'll get month in, month out, year in, year out, and we'll not meet people except at a wedding, and worse still, at a funeral. So number 4 is, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. Number 5 is, I wish I'd let myself be happier. Can you imagine that? Going back to this comment about people pleasing, I wish I'd let myself be happier. I'm going to go through the 5 again because I think they're really important. The top 5 regrets of dying people. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I'd not worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. The top 5 regrets. Now, though looking at those top 5 things alone can be enough to help us begin the process of reinvention, self-reinvention, that these things will not fulfill. Now, of course, life is not perfect. Lots of things happen in our lives. Loads of things happen. But these top 5 things are incredibly important. And one of the things, the final thing he talks about, and it's something that I've not done very well, but I'm certainly doing a lot better now. Plan your day from the night before. What we do, we wake up and we think what we're going to do next. But sometimes just spending a few minutes at night planning the day that's coming. So from the night before, we plan the day, what's going to happen. And one of the things he says, and I think he's quite right, the more experiences we have, the more we have to offer. Not just in money or time, but we have a lot to offer in terms of experience. He's not talking about being arrogant or being bullish or brutish, but the more we experience in terms of life and growing and maturing, the more we have to offer. And then he says, who are you going to share your challenge with? So it's very difficult to do these things on our own. I know that I work a lot better if I'm in a group. I work a lot better if I have a coach, somebody I know who's going to ask me questions. That's really important. So a few things. How are you going to close out the year? So maybe you've got a birthday, maybe in 6 months' time. So say, for example, your birthday is in June. Say it's towards the end of June. At the beginning of June, start to put in some questions about like an exit for the previous year. So, you know, the next birthday, you might be 50. So you're now 49. Your birthday is in June. So at the beginning of June, you begin to reflect on the previous year of your life. What was good? What were the highlights? What were the low moments? What things happened in that year you're not going to bring into your new 50? A whole range of things, almost like an exit interview. Those of you that do journaling, there's something called paper dialogue, where you have an object or an item or a place or a job or career or a person, and you begin to write a dialogue on the paper. And so maybe you're approaching 50 and you want to write about your 49th year. So you get into a conversation with it. What did you like? What didn't you like? What did you find helpful? I'd never want that to happen again. I'm going to make sure in my 50th year, this is not going to go into it. So having this really creative conversation helps you to have this kind of exit strategy from the previous year. So how to close out the year? As I said, margin my diary already. Why have a plan? It's really important just to map out everything. Now, we know that there's loads of things we can't control. We know that. But having something where we're aiming for, and if something knocks us off course, we've got to focus, but we can still kind of move to where we need to get to. And sometimes the focus has to change because something has happened. And say sometimes he says that something's happened to us. They call us. So he talks about his father who became very unwell. And so he understood that as his father, the incident calling him to kind of come out of himself and do something different, instead of seeing it as an aggravation. But he said he saw it as something calling him to do something different. So have a plan. So things that are really important, stick them in your diary from now. Rest times, holiday times, alternate months, do something different. Even if you think, oh, I never thought about doing that before, do it. Just see what it's like. At least you've done it. And then you say to yourself, do you know what? Never going to do that again. At least you've done it. And lots of things don't cost much. It might cost a bit, some don't cost much. Do a course. There's loads of courses. There's lots of free courses online. And maybe by the time you get to the night, you don't want to do anything that's online. But there's lots of stuff that you can do at the weekends. It's free. So what's on? There's an app called Meetup. The amount of stuff that's carrying on in any one city is huge, and sometimes we don't know, we don't get involved because we don't know, we've not made the effort. Make the effort to see what's out there. But also it talks about developing a new habit every quarter. You want to focus on something for the quarter. That's 3 months. So by the time you get to the year, 4 new habits, you will not be the same person. You will have reinvented yourself. Listen, thank you very much indeed for your time. If there's no comments, please feel to drop them in the box. More than happy to supply an answer best I can, or DM me outside of the session, as some people do, and we can enter into dialogue. Also, if there's any topics that you'd like me to cover, listen, it's great for me. The amount of stuff I'm learning at the moment is just absolutely unbelievable. Really, really enjoying what I'm learning at the moment around trauma and supporting people who have been traumatized. Really, really important stuff. So I wish you well. Enjoy it the rest of your evening and the rest of the week. And we're back next week to kind of have a look at a different view of self-reinvention. Is it good? Is it not? All right. Feeling, hey, listen, if at the end of these sessions you feel inspired, my job's done. If I can add value to people's lives, bring it on. That's what I want to do. So there you go. Maybe I need to think about how I'm going to celebrate year 4 of these sessions. So year 4 is in April the 14th is year 4 when I did my first live broadcast. Unbelievable. Anyway, listen, enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. Keep warm, and if it snows and you have to drive, be very careful how you do drive. So wish you well. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care. Thank you for your time and your input and just being present. Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Bye-bye.